everybody. Welcome to the new edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jeff D., as you saw in our beautiful new introduction. Thanks to a bunch of people whose names will be put up at the end of that for not only producing that new intro that we saw last week. Look.
There I am.
Windows. We've got a play button for Jeff.
Windows things.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's the same introduction we used last week. Hopefully things are getting better. By the way, we are in the new studio, and for those of you who've been following the list of things that have gone wrong, including the massive virus that destroyed I don't know how many computers last week that we had to scramble with, things are both better and worse this week. And yes, I know that sounds impossible, but in some ways it's true, and in some ways it's not true. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not making any sense.
This is my first time in the new studio, so I'm very.
What do you think? It looks like the old one.
There's some brighter colors, and shinier TV screens.
Yeah. So this is a live public access television program sponsored by the atheist community of Austin. For more information about the ACA, you can visit the website www.atheist-community.org. There you can find information about all the ACA's events, including some of the ones I'll announce today, as well as a calendar of events and links to frequently asked questions and ways to contact and communicate with members of the group, including a Yahoo discussion list, various email contact information, and the notes on the website. The ACA is a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state, and they have weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road beginning around 11:30 here in beautiful downtown Austin, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe beginning at around 12:15. I don't have the information regarding the December lecture, but I do have some information about future lectures. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast that is currently on hiatus called The Nonprofits. For more information, you can go to nonprofitsradio.com. That's P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S. There will not be a Nonprofits episode probably until after the first of the year. Just pretend like it was a regular TV show or whatever, and we're on our winter break or whatever it is that they do.
But I want to be on that one. The next one you have.
You can be on whenever you want.
No, I can't. You guys have all the equipment.
Well, I mean, you can be on whenever we're actually doing it. All you have to do is show up.
Okay, I'm good. I'm warning you now.
It's not a warning. It's a promise. And you have to hold him to it. If we have a nonprofits and Jeff's not there,
then it's his fault.
Flood him with email. Or something like that. In addition to the media outreach programs the ACA participates in, you can also find us at a bunch of events around town. We don't just have a once a month dealio. We've got brunches on Sundays and happy hours on Thursdays. We do blood drives, food bank. We keep Austin clean, street cleanup, a number of other events. There's the information for the happy hour on Thursdays, 7 o'clock at Dog and Duck Pub. That says 17th and Guadalupe. Obviously, it wasn't reformatted for the beautiful new lower third that we've got. But those events are just happening every week, nothing special. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person can come down to any of those. You don't have to be a member to attend. You don't have to call us in advance to attend. You don't have to double-check. Just kind of show up and say, hey, where are all the godless heathens? And somebody there will know who you're talking about, and you can join us and have a good time. After this program's over, we get together for dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. We're on the air till 6 o'clock, and we'll be down at Threadgill's right around 6:30 or so. There's the address, 301 West Riverside Drive. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to that as well. But if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, punch, pester, piss, blah, 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 pick on, whatever, add as many pings as you want, please don't. It's a live call-in program, as I mentioned before. Today's Sunday, November 15th, 2009, if you're wondering if it's live or a rebroadcast. And we'll have the number up for you like almost instantaneously. A number will appear.
Yeah.
That was the snap for the camera. The snap for the phone number is here. See, I'm not really magic.
Please tell me you arranged this in advance.
No, I didn't arrange it in advance. I'm messing with the folks in the booth. They'll get the number up for you shortly. We'll be taking live calls probably for most of the show, but I want to make sure we went ahead and got the number up. And briefly, I'll talk about what I did yesterday, which was the Texas Free Thought Convention in San Antonio. Last year it was held in Austin. This year it was in San Antonio. They've announced that next year it'll be in Dallas, Fort Worth area, and the year after that it will be in Houston. I don't believe they've made an announcement for where it will be in 2012, but I'm going to be lobbying for a return to Austin where we can have a big end of the world party for the 2012 Texas Free Thought Convention. This is just me saying what I'd like to have happen. None of this has worked out yet. So, and I'm going to have to talk to local Austin groups as well as the organizers of the Texas Free Thought Convention to see if we can do that. And if not, that's fine too. It's a wonderful event, and I'll go as long as I have time and it's, workable within driving distance and whatnot. We had a bunch of guest speakers yesterday, including Kathleen Johnson, who's the military director for American Atheist and the originator and original president of Military Association of Atheists and Freethinkers. Dr. Vic Stinger, who was also here last week, or no, 2 weeks ago in October in Austin at Opal Divines. We had a nice discussion with him. He was there as well yesterday and gave a nice talk. Dan Barker was there, played a few songs, and spoke for a few minutes on that. We had pretty much a good time across the board. The president of Atheist Alliance International was there as well, and Claire Woolner from CFI Austin were all involved in a panel discussion where they took questions. They had wonderful activities for kids, so that it was a lot more family friendly. The kids got to make non-Newtonian fluids and had a room all to themselves and basically just enjoyed the day. Lots of good information came out of that. Some of that you're going to be hearing about on this program in the coming months, including information about the Camp Quest program in Texas, which is now up and running. And awesome. I'm not going to give more details about that today, but we'll talk about it in the coming months for sure. We had a really good time yesterday. I think most people were probably hoping for some slight changes in the schedule. I don't think there was enough time allotted for dinner. There was a lot of scrambling to get out and get back for Dan Barker, but the event, for the most part, went off without a hitch. And we had a really good time. I'm looking forward to next year as well. And kudos to Paul and all the rest of the organizers for putting on a really amazing event that has grown significantly over last year, and we're all kind of optimistic that it'll continue to grow. And I will continue pushing for us to participate in it and support it as long as we keep doing good stuff.
That sounds great.
You didn't go, though.
I didn't go.
I'm sorry.
No, too busy. Too busy. Trying to make a living.
Yeah.
You know.
I know the feeling.
You?
I've been busy as well, but I flat out told my boss there's no way that I'll be working this weekend.
Huh.
Yeah, because I've worked every other weekend for the last 6 months for the most part, so they kind of cut me some slack.
Speaking of 2012,
yes.
Have you seen the movie?
Hell no. I don't want to see John Cusack destroy his career like that.
Oh, most of it's quite good.
You've seen it?
Yeah, most of it's quite good.
Okay.
It's the ending. Terrible. It just falls apart.
It's the end of the world. I mean, anyway, I don't want to know. I may actually end up watching it.
It's actually a lot less apocalyptic than you might think.
Okay.
Which is one of the disappointments about it.
See, no more.
Yeah, I know. We don't want to give out spoilers, but I'm just saying.
So we've got, I noticed that there's callers on every line. We're going to get the information up there in just a second. And actually, it's coming in now. There was one more thing that I wanted to mention. I know Dan Barker is doing a debate right now, as the show is going on, down at Texas State University in San Marcos, that I was unfortunately unable to attend. But I did have a good time talking to him yesterday. I won a book in the raffle.
Did you? What book?
Well, I knew you were going to ask.
You didn't bring it?
I didn't. I got like 3 or 4 books yesterday, and I didn't bring them, and I can't remember which one I won and which one I didn't. So,
well, congratulations.
I don't want to do that. But yeah, it was
winning an unnamed book.
Did you want to go start taking callers at the moment?
Heck yeah.
Let's do that.
Let's just go straight into it.
We've got Mark in Ontario.
Hello.
Are you there, Mark?
I'm here.
How are you?
My question is really to Matt. I'm an atheist, so my question is, if you were to design a religion to kind of bridge atheism and Christianity, what would your kind of intermediate religion be that might be able to achieve that?
Well, first off, I wouldn't.
Well, that's why I prefaced it with, I mean,
yeah.
I'm coming from the angle of, obviously I'm from the UK, and it seems like the Anglican Church has done a very good job of taking God out of religion. There's a lot of people, you know, they don't have the Bible-believing kind of fundamentalist.
Right, and I might be nitpicking about terminology, because when somebody talks, when we talk about what religion is not anything that is necessarily tied to a god. It is a collection of principles, instructions, tenets, rituals that people participate in. I guess it might be worthwhile adding, with no distinct connection to reality, to distinguish it from just being, you know, a football fan or something. You know, but
my question was more hypothetical, that if you were to engineer something with the goal of weaning people off of religion over a generation or two, because it seems there are certain people that are unable to make this leap once they've been indoctrinated. I just wondered what kind of features you might put into it as a halfway kind of step towards rationalism.
Well, I've often said that I'm in favor of taking the good from religion and leaving the bad, taking the good from anything and leaving the bad. And so the sense of community that are built, that's built within religious organizations, but I don't think that is a product of religion. I think that's the product of the people involved. There's nothing, as a matter of fact, if you look at, for example, Christianity, it's a very divisive religion. At face value, if you looked at the Bible and the history and everything else, it's a divisive religion. The communities that have been built out of that religion have been built by people, good people, who, like anybody else, want to live in a more peaceful, happy, cooperative environment, and are encouraging that in other people. And that's the sort of thing that I would encourage, and focus on truth. The application of critical thinking, the evaluation of evidence, and the truth never has anything to fear from inquiry. So let's sit around and ask questions. And if our beliefs, no matter how treasured they may be, do not withstand the critical examination, then you leave them behind. And that would be like the first and only tenet, the first and only dogma of the transitional religion that we're hypothesizing about is, thou shalt not cling to claims that are unsupported.
Right.
Except for this one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. What would you do, Dave? Thanks, Mark. Or would you?
I'm not quite sure what the goal is. I mean, if you set up any organization, but you could come up with something that's, you know, a little less extreme than religion, but still a religion.
Right.
A little less extreme than Christianity, but still a religion. And as soon as you do that, you've created something that's going to want to perpetuate itself. So I'm not even clear that the idea of, with even the hypothetical idea of building an organization that's in between, that would be a bridge, would function as a bridge instead of just being a new place to catch a bunch of people and maybe not being quite as bad. I could certainly think of religions that are not quite as bad as the ones that are popular nowadays, but
yeah.
And but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for pointing out the problems with the ones we do have.
Yeah.
I'm actually against it when I see religions changing and adapting in order to persist, because I'd like them to go away.
Yeah. On the one hand, I mean, okay, we're really happy that all those fine Christian people have been dragged kicking and screaming away from their Bronze Age, enslave your neighbor and kill everybody who's different from you roots, and become a little more palatable to people with decent moral sensibilities. But that's a half step. I mean, okay, I'll give you partial credit for doing that. But all you've really done, as Jeff pointed out, is make a third bucket for somebody to fit in. And by the way, you don't have any of the authoritative standing that your more fundamentalist cousins do. You know, oh, we're gonna disregard these elements of our holy book and focus on these elements. Okay, what gives you the right to do that? Oh, just because Jesus loves us and said we can do that. It's, you know, there's a reason why you have thousands of denominations, or more than 1,000 denominations, that all call themselves Christian and all disagree on every possible point of dogma. And I don't know that, as a matter of fact, I'd agree with Jeff that there's a good argument to be made that you can't bridge that. You're just creating different buckets to put people into. I don't know. We've got, is it Jeanetta?
Yes, it's Jeanetta.
Jeanetta in Akron, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine.
Hi. I'm an atheist. I'm a black atheist. And recently, well, actually last year around December, I actually became an atheist, and it became kind of hard for me. I made a YouTube. I didn't really know who to talk to. I just wanted to know, what do you think about the shortage of black Americans being atheists? Why is it so hard?
Boy, wouldn't you know that better than us?
I mean, I don't know. I've tried to figure it out, but it just seems like white people are more open for some reason.
Huh. So maybe your question to us should be, why does it seem like it's so much easier for white people? But again, not really having your experience to compare mine to, I don't really know.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. We actually had some calls a month or two ago when we were still doing the show from my place, where we talked about, why there don't seem to be as many black atheists. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. Maybe there's just as many when you consider relative population sizes, but there are not as many outspoken, which just changes the question as to why are there fewer outspoken. I don't know. I could guess about some things. I'd feel really bad. You're getting near dangerous territory of stereotyping. We've talked before about the kind of the possibility that all religion is some form of Stockholm syndrome, because it's always been absurd to me that the African American community would embrace the religion that enslaved them and took away their identities. And there's been a backlash about that on some fronts. And yet black Christian churches in America are some of the strongest, proudest, most vocal. And I think that it takes a long time to get past the mistakes. So the racist mistakes, the abusive mistakes, the civil rights mistakes that were made that we're gradually starting to correct. I can easily see a future where, not only is this not an issue, but it may be an issue the other direction. It's hard to guess at what the causes may be. I do know that at least among, I couldn't even say that. I was going to say that the black communities are tighter in some senses, and that may be true for some communities and not for others. I think it may be unfair to just to characterize it based on race or anything else. So I don't have a good answer. I'm as baffled as anybody else.
Hey, Jeanetta?
Uh-huh.
Did you? I thought I heard at the when you started, when you first started talking, that you hinted that there were some obstacles that you faced in becoming an atheist, or what has been your experience?
Pretty much, when I turned 18 June 2008, and yeah. I went to college. I started taking philosophy courses and stuff like that. And I just pretty much came to a realization. And then after a realization, I had to, figure out, should I tell my parents? How do I tell my parents?
Yeah. That's tough for us too.
Yeah. They eventually found out, but yeah. I don't know. It just seemed like it was much more hardcore, among people that I talked to. But yeah, I understand what you guys are saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. My parents were at the time when they found out about me, both Christian ministers. So it was difficult. And I know Matt's family are very religious. Are you familiar with some of the bigger names in atheism who happen to be African American, like Reginald Finley?
I'm not.
Reginald Finley has done a podcast for years. I know he's still doing some kind of show. You might want to look him up on the internet. And is Neil deGrasse Tyson an atheist?
He is by my definition. Out of everything I've ever seen him say, I don't know if he identifies himself with that label or not.
Is he an astrophysicist? Is that his field? Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson is also prominent. So it could also be that it's not quite as bad as you think, and it might just take a little looking around.
The other thing is that, as somebody else pointed out, the ACA has had black members in the past and has some currently. We've been asked this with regard to other classifications as well. Why are there so few female outspoken atheists? Comparatively. I mean, we live in a population, at least in the United States, that's 51% or so, if it maybe higher, female. And yet, while our group was founded by a woman, Kathleen Johnson I talked about before, the Military Association of Atheists and Freethinkers, woman, founded that organization, and yet seemingly out on the forefront or the most outspoken or identifiable among atheists seem to be males. And if you run around YouTube, I may have seen one of your videos, but if you run around YouTube and look, what you're going to see is a lot of young white males talking about their atheism. By and large, there are increasing numbers of women involved, and there are increasing number of minorities, whether it be black, Hispanic, whatever, involved now. I think we're in this state of flux where it's really hard to measure anything, and we should just wait a while, let things play out, let people get a little bit more comfortable. As soon as more people are comfortable with saying, yeah, I don't believe, and I'm willing to say I don't believe, I think you kind of see the floodwaters in that direction, and you might find that there are a lot more atheists in a variety of communities where people wouldn't have suspected it, including working clergy members.
Yeah.
But.
All right. Well, thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling.
That's something that Dan Dennett's been working on. He's got a couple of ministers who are atheists and anonymous.
I heard his talk about that.
Yeah, it's
right. Asking, polling ministers, working ministers who are in fact actually atheists, and finding out what their experiences have been and why they are in the position they're in.
And I'm really fortunate that I never ended up in that situation. Dan Barker talked about that yesterday, where for a period of, I think it was the last 6 months that he was actually preaching, he was an atheist. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew it. And by any standard, even though, after the fact it's easy for somebody else to say, oh, you were never a true Christian, by any recognizable standard, the guy was a true Christian, I was a true Christian, half the people that have been on this show by any standard would have been true Christians. Now whether or not they were gung-ho Bible-thumping preachers or not is a different issue. It's a bit of kind of revisionist convenience to say, well, you're not a true Christian because you're not a Christian now, and no true Christian would ever not be a Christian. Okay, thanks. But if you had known the guy at the time, he identified as a Christian, was convinced that he was a true Christian, was baffled by those who weren't, and everybody who knew him would have considered him that as well. So it's an unfair kind of loophole that they're trying to create. It's like saying it's the not only is it the no true Scotsman fallacy, but it's potentially worse because it's used so often. As a way, oh, he was never, he was never really that. It's a way of dismissing a legitimate point, and that being that not everybody who sincerely believes something continues to believe it in the face of evidence to the contrary.
We hear that all the time, And we also hear, strangely, from Christians who say they used to be atheists, and yet have not the slightest grasp of any of the, deeper thoughts on the subject that all of the atheists I know have gone through to reach that position. So, we're sort of put in the position of saying, well, you were not a true atheist, which we don't say. I mean, you don't have to understand any of the arguments to be an atheist, technically. But, boy, it apparently sure helps.
Yeah, I'm fine with saying, okay, you used to be an atheist. Great. Why were you an atheist? It's the same reason, it's the same thing I ask people on the theistic position. What do you believe in why? If you were an atheist, and I've had people, I swear I could go pull this email up, because just from a few weeks ago, I was an atheist and I understand why you guys believe what you believe or disbelieve what you disbelieve, because I used to disbelieve those same things for the exact same reasons. And I was like, okay, great. Here's somebody who used to be in the position that we're in, and they have since converted, so he will have rational evidence, rational, logical reasons supported by evidence. Cool. I couldn't wait for the conversation. This was going to be possibly life-changing.
And
it was some of the most laughable crap I've ever heard. I mean, I apologize. I don't mean to be dismissive, but I have to be. If you say, I understand the arguments for and against the existence of God, and I understand your positions with regard to reason and evidence, and I used to believe as you did, but now I believe differently, and I can present the reason and evidence for it, and you come up with nothing better than, I was sick and prayed and I got better, I'm sorry, I don't know, it's like a complete bait and switch. I feel so disappointed that I don't even want to respond to an email like that I might have responded. Look, if you're going to email, by the way, we're going to get back to calls in just a second. If you're going to email the show, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to me, it goes to the co-host, it goes to a number of other people behind the scenes of the show. We can't possibly answer every email that comes in, but we answer a great deal of them. And if you're looking for a way to make sure that your email gets answered, don't feel that you need to start off with I used to be an atheist, but I found some evidence. If that's honest and that's honestly the way you want to represent yourself, that's fine. But don't feel obligated to do that. You don't have to lie. You don't have to pretend to be in agreement with us in order to get it. Matter of fact, the theistic emails that I receive that are in opposition to my positions, that attempt to present arguments unapologetically, unapologetically, those are the ones that are most likely to get an answer from me. The guys who are writing to say, hey, I got into a discussion with somebody and I didn't know what to say, or I really appreciate the show, those tend to take a back seat to somebody who sincerely wants to have a conversation about these issues because they believe something very different from what I believe, and we'd kind of like to find out why. Now, of course, if you're just writing to preach, expect preaching in return. And if you're writing to have a conversation, we can have a conversation. But if you are just writing because you feel some obligation to witness to people and you want to get it off your chest without any actual conversation, just press delete instead of send, because we don't need our time wasted by that. Go witness to somebody else. We've got Nathan in Ashland.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you? Oh, wait, I asked that.
I'm a really big fan of the show. I enjoy it a lot. It's really helpful and useful to me for arming myself with arguments, and so I want to thank you for that up front.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Thank you.
Before I get into what I wanted to ask you about, I have a comment on what you've just been talking about theists who claim that they were once atheists as a way of getting street cred for themselves up front before they launch into their arguments.
Right. Yeah.
I know that Richard Dawkins has written briefly about this, and he actually used the example of C.S. Lewis, and he said that it's one of the oldest tricks in the book, much favored by religious apologists, and he also said it serves to establish street cred up front, and he advised people to look out for it. And it illustrates for me the kind of double standard that theists use. On the one hand, they'll say, I was an atheist, and that will give them credibility for what they're going to say next. But on the other hand, when an atheist says they were once a true Christian, they don't want to accept that.
Well, to be fair, some do and some don't.
Right.
I don't want to necessarily dump over any bucket, but I'm with you. You're correct.
Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of concept or the same principle that applies when theists, when arguing for a supernatural position, such as the resurrection or the virgin birth or whatever, they will, when there's no evidence no physical evidence to support their position, they'll appeal to the non-overlapping magisterium, and they'll say that even though there's no evidence to support our views, whether it be the resurrection or creationism or whatever, they'll say that, or the existence of God is probably the biggest example. They'll say, well, science can't touch God, science can't touch supernatural matters, and so no evidence to the contrary applies or is relevant to our arguments. But you can be sure that if DNA evidence turned up that Jesus had no biological father, they would throw the non-overlapping magisterium right out the window.
Yes.
And so that's another example of...
And they're constantly trying to do that anyway. I got email this week about, for the umpteenth time, about how laminin is represented as being in the shape of a cross.
Shroud of Turin.
Shroud of Turin.
Scientific test of the Shroud of Turin. Man, they just keep going on with that.
They keep desperately trying to use scientific evidence, and then when somebody points out that it doesn't actually support their case, as they might think, that they've committed some logical fallacy or a misunderstanding, etc. Oh well, that doesn't matter because science can't touch God. Well, why'd you go that road in the first place?
Yeah. Right, that's exactly what I was saying. Well, my question today has to do with deism, and I was wondering what your take on deism is exactly, because I don't hear you talk about deism all that much on the show. I consider myself a deist. Of course, I don't claim that the existence of God can be demonstrated, so technically I'm agnostic, but I think the probability of God is less than 50%, but I still consider myself a deist. And I was wondering if you might consider deism a transitional phase, so that somebody who's a deist may inevitably end up becoming an atheist just because it's kind of a transitional kind of position.
I'm sure there are people for whom deism is a transitional state.
Why do you believe something that you think there's less than a 50-50 chance that it's true?
And how did you determine that there was less than a 50% chance?
Whatever he thinks the odds are. Whatever you think the odds are, why would you choose consciously to believe a thing that you think is less than 50-50 likely to be true?
I'm not sure. Like I said, when I contemplate these things, I think that I'm probably am in a transitional phase. And I've read Richard Dawkins' essay, Viruses of the Mind, and I can see that maybe the God meme is kind of something that can attach itself to people in such a way that it's hard to let go of it. I do think that I do think that deism can naturally lead into naturalism, complete naturalism. But,
I suppose. I was just curious about that one point.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with the idea that, hey, well, in my case, I was a Christian for a number of years, and then I didn't just immediately say, oh, I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist. There was a period of time where I was trying to figure out exactly what I believed and why. And during that time, I might have identified with a number of different positions where, I don't think the Bible's true, but there still may be something to Christianity. And then it's, I don't think that there's anything particularly true about Christianity, but there still might be a God. And so let me investigate, other potential religions, and then I don't really find anything true in those, and so there still might be a God. It's just the kind of God that we can't know anything about. And then of course from there it was rather easy to say, well, why on earth? How could I rationally say I believe there's a God, and also say I don't believe we can know anything about God? I'm not even sure what the definition of God is, and I have no way of assessing whether or not this undefined thing could possibly exist because I have nothing to compare it to. That is the way out of the meme trap for me. What I do have an objection to, and I met some yesterday, because the Texas Free Thought Convention is not just an atheist thing. There are deists there as well, free thinkers. I don't begin to understand how somebody can be a skeptic, a rational thinker that is considering evidence and making decisions based on evidence, and not be an atheist.
Right.
Now, I'm open to being wrong on this and having discussions. I just don't see how it's possible. I don't see how people recognize, there are Christians who say, I'm a skeptic. Well, okay, you're a skeptic. You seem to be skeptical about all sorts of things except for your own religion. And if you have some divine revelation that is evidence for you, okay, that's fine. But at least would you at least admit? I'm not you. I'm talking to this hypothetical Christian that
right.
that your beliefs aren't justified for anybody else, and by that account are incompatible with skepticism. The application of critical thinking to evidence and reason. I don't understand how deism could be considered compatible either. I guess it would depend. How are you going to define God? I mean, this is which God are you going? The deistic God, the God that wound up the universe and let it go, type thing, that doesn't interfere, that doesn't in any way manifest in reality, that doesn't care. First of all, if it exists, so what? Whether or not somebody believes in it's irrelevant. But I see no reason to come to a conclusion that it existed. And everybody who's tried to demonstrate why they think it is has always resorted to an argument from ignorance of, I just can't see how the universe could have come to exist in any other way, and because I can't think of anything else, this God answer must be the answer. Maybe we just don't understand God.
And that's not how skeptical thinking works.
Yeah, it's not.
That's just not applying the principles.
Well, and that's what I think I was trying to get to. The God I see as being almost completely improbable is the personal God, and so that's how I would define God as. And maybe that's why I see deism as being transitional. And once you're a deist, as I am currently, I don't know how long that will last.
Yeah.
Once you're a deist, you think to yourself, well, wait a minute. If you posit a God who creates and then leaves and has nothing to do at all, why is he there to begin with? Why does he need to be there to create and to begin with if he has nothing at all to do with it? I think it might be the last. I kind of see deism as the last rung on the theistic ladder.
Well, that may be the case. Speaking personally, I hope that for you that is the case, but I don't think it's exactly our job to tell you what you should or shouldn't believe. We're just here to describe our positions. I certainly would prefer a world full of deists to a world full of theists.
And that's the other thing. I don't have any personal emotional attachment to an idea of a God. I am perfectly fine with there not being a God. I don't have any emotional attachment at all. I do care about the evidence, and I do place evidence and skeptical thinking above emotional attachment. And
but then let me ask you this question one more time, right? Because I'm still puzzled. You said earlier you think that it's less than a 50% chance that a deistic God exists.
Well, I said it's less than 50% chance that a personal God exists.
Less than 50% chance that a personal God exists. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe I misunderstood. All right.
Well, in any case, I can tell you exactly how long your deism will last. As long as you let it.
Right.
If you've already viewed this as a transitional thing, you may be on your way out of a deistic position. We could probably have a conversation where you and I, where at the end of it, you'd say, oh, okay, I guess I am an atheist, not a deist. But that's not necessarily the way things are going to end up. You've got to take whatever journey you're going to take. You know, we're happy to answer questions and give our feedback on it. But if you're viewing deism as a pathway to atheism, then okay, fine. If what you're really looking for is permission, I give you permission. Take the next step.
Oh, I'm not looking for permission. I'm a free thinker. I think for myself.
Yeah, I'm having fun with you.
Right. And that's the other thing is I find so much common ground with atheists on virtually everything. Politics, separation of church and state, science. I'm pretty much on the same ground as atheists, so I find a lot of common ground. And before I leave, I wanted to, just this past weekend, I wrote up a brief little few sentences of what I think is my personal definition of morality, and I wanted to see what you thought of it.
Okay, go.
My personal definition of morality would be that morality is a product of the collective experience of societies and cultures, and from these institutions, standards emerge that form patterns as they evolve over time. The emerging patterns do not originate from a single statically overarching source, but from survival and efficiency mechanisms that adapt to changing societal conditions. Is that a definition that you think is competent?
I think that's not bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty on board with that. I mean, I think there's more to it than that, but it's...
You could probably distill that down to a couple sentences, but...
Right.
But from what I can tell, that's pretty good.
But that was written in response to a Christian I was debating with on the internet who asked me for... Because I presented him Euthyphro's dilemma, and he said before he answered that dilemma, he wanted me to give... he wanted me to answer... the question of where atheists get their morality from, and that was my answer.
Yeah, so, it's worth pointing out. I'm going to clear up this line. Thanks a lot, Nathan. I appreciate the call.
Okay.
It's worth pointing out that atheists aren't one thing or one bucket. We don't necessarily all agree on political issues. We don't necessarily all agree on any issue other than the non-existence of a God, which is one reason why there are various little... I don't want to make a big deal about this. I just wanted to bring it up for clarity. I'm happy, perfectly happy, to say that, yes, Virginia, you're not a complete skeptic until you're also an atheist. Sorry, I know I just pissed off a bunch of skeptics out there.
I just had an email exchange with someone about that.
But that's the way I look at it. Yeah. And until somebody justifies using the tools of skepticism that they can be a skeptic and a theist, I'm going to continue to hold that view. However, being an atheist doesn't mean that you're a skeptic at all. There are plenty of people who would technically qualify as atheist in the sense that they don't believe in God, and plenty of people who are anti-religionists who may not even necessarily qualify as an atheist. And this does not in any way guarantee that they are rational, skeptical, or anything else. There are some batshit crazy atheists out there, just like there are for any other group.
Aliens.
There are, and not even necessarily in organized groups like that. There are individual atheists out there who, for example, came by their atheism for non-rational reasons. They are not skeptics. They are not rational thinkers. They are perhaps irrational conspiracy theory advocates who have come across the nonsense of organized religion, spun it into something, and then reached their atheism through that path. There are others who are entirely emotional atheists. Perhaps they were abused by somebody in the church for whatever reason, and they come to it that way. And some are apathetic, implicit, I don't think there's a God, don't see any reason to, don't give a damn, and they could believe any number of absolutely absurd woo claimed with homeopathy and Reiki and acupuncture and alien abductions, or we didn't go to the moon, or any other nonsense. So it's, while we use a particular label, I'm an atheist. It's the label that I use most often because it addresses what I'm talking about.
And if
I'm a skeptic.
If I could be overly picky for just a second.
Yes.
You're absolutely right that there are atheists with all kinds of different beliefs about all kinds of different things. And that's why you were not quite correct when you said all atheists agree on the non-existence of God thing. Because I just had this long email argument with a guy who said only someone who openly believes that there isn't a God is an atheist.
Okay, right? He's just wrong.
But that guy's an atheist, but he doesn't agree with the rest of us about what the definition of the term is.
Okay.
So, it's
only somebody who has a cow on their shoulder is an atheist. Therefore, I am and you aren't.
Now there's two of us. Let's form an organization.
We have formed an organization. Let's get on to more calls.
Okay.
We got Rodrigo in Brazil.
Hello?
Hello, Rodrigo.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Rodrigo.
Am I the first caller from Brazil?
Today, for sure. Possibly. I'm pretty sure you might be the first caller from Brazil in the studio. I can't remember if we had somebody call from Brazil at my house or not.
Okay. First of all, I want to say I appreciate a lot what you guys do, and I love the show. And especially when you met rant somebody else because of their views of God. Last day, actually, I just used the mafia boss analogy that you used once.
Yeah,
against
that proved to be pretty popular.
And my friend didn't like it a lot. He got a little bit pissed off.
The truth does tend to irritate people, I've found.
Yeah. And well, guys, I basically called for two questions. I believe three actually, but they won't take a lot of the time. The first one I believe is more for you, Matt, because I believe you're the one who knows more about the Bible than all the other guys over there.
And I don't have it with me today, so who knows? Go ahead.
You won't need it. I believe it. I'm about the half of the New Testament, reading the New Testament, the Catholic version, and a lot of argument that I constantly hear from friends of mine against the New and the Old Testament is that they say that the Old Testament doesn't count. That it's the new one that counts. That because Jesus was the one present in the New Testament. And I just want some kind of tip to argue to use against that.
Sure. According to the New Testament, Jesus said, if you believe Moses, you'd believe me. Moses is raised and mentioned more times in the New Testament than anybody else outside of Jesus. Without the Old Testament, you don't have the Ten Commandments. Without the Old Testament, you don't have any of the prophecies that people would use to claim that Jesus was the God. You cannot chuck it all out. As much as they'd like to, what they end up with then is a brand new religion that has no ties to Judaism and therefore no tie to a creation myth or original sin or any other things, any of the reasons for which their religion supposedly exists. That's all you have to say. You can't chuck it out.
Wow, that's a lot of things. I wish I had a paper to write it.
It's on video. It'll be on the internet somewhere in 20 minutes, I'm sure.
Okay. Thanks. A second question is it's about something that I'm kind of I see a lot in the show yours. The people ask you guys about the moderate Christians and the not moderate Christians, the fundamentalists, and it's something quite bothers me because well, I'm the only atheist in my family, and I've been atheist for about 7 years old. For about 7 years I'm atheist, and my family get it. They respect me. They doesn't push their religion against me. My family's not really religious. They are pretty much Christians, and that's all about it. And I see some arguments that you guys use, especially, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not very good that there is a continuation of the moderate Christians, because even though they don't completely believe in all the things the Bible says, they are not on the club. They are not full memberships of the club. And I want to ask, because in terms of sociability, I believe it's honestly much more easy that you talk and live around somebody that just believe in God, or basically a deist or a modern Christian. And should we atheists create such a hype, such a problem, because they don't believe completely, and that kind of make them about a little bit fake?
Yes, and I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure I followed this. Are you saying saying that you think it is better for people to be moderate or liberal Christians rather than fundamentalists?
No.
What are you saying?
No, I don't think that's actually. I think that in terms of you talking about, I think it's more difficult. A person that is, I probably think that you're going to disagree with me on that. I think it's more easy or less often that you get a bash for somebody that is a moderate Christian or just a theist. I'm not saying that they all should be it, or that's a good thing.
So you're saying we get bashed less by moderates? That is what you're saying?
In my personal experience, yes.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, me too.
But whether I'm getting bashed or not is actually not my standard personally for whether I think a belief system is good or not. My standard for whether a belief system is good and constructive and a thing we want to have around is whether it is based in reality or not. Because to me, the fundamentalists come from somewhere. If fundamentalism arises from more moderate religion, when conditions get a little tough and the moderate religionists look around and say, what are we doing wrong? How come everything's falling apart? And what they do is they look back and they say, what have we stopped doing? What extreme things did we set aside that might be why God is mad at us now? And they go back and they find those things and embrace them. And that's where fundamentalism comes from.
Sorry.
I don't, while obviously it's easier to get along with moderate Christians than with fundamentalists, ultimately I don't, my personal preference would not be for, a world full of moderate Christians or moderate theists of any religion. My preference would be for no religion at all.
Yeah, on this particular issue, it kind of comes down to how you're going to address it. Because, for example, moderate and liberal Christians, yeah, okay, they're both better than the more extremist fundamentalists. The thing is that you could look at it as these are stages in a pathway from fundamentalism to freedom from religion, or you can look at it as these are pathways to fundamentalism from a freedom of religion. And you'd be correct in both cases because it's bidirectional. And the complaint against more moderate and liberal theists and Christians in particular is that they act as a shield that legitimizes the more fundamentalist and extremist groups. You cannot, it's fine. The average person that I run into in the United States, for example, who is a Christian, a believer, I don't have any problem with them. I have lots of friends that are that way. I've had friends that way from before I was an atheist, and currently we get along. It's not applicable to their daily life. We understand that we just disagree on a point, and by and large, they're not trying to do something that I find objectionable. But for the individual, I'm not, saying, oh, you're an evil person. I will, though, if we're having a discussion about this in a broader sense, say what you believe, whether or not you realize it, contributes to the problem, and that's a simple fact. And it's no more harmful or disrespectful for me to say that to a moderate or liberal Christian as it would be for them to say that I'm doing something along those lines. If that were the case, if for example there was a causal link between atheism and mass murder, which there isn't, they'd be correct to point it out. Yeah, thank God. All right, one more, and then I got to move on to the next caller.
Thank you.
You had
basically, how can I put this? Another thing, when I was reading the Bible, I have a friend of mine that's very religious, not to the point that she will bash you in the face for being an atheist. She knows I am an atheist. But she kind of said something funny for me, on me, and something that I never heard before somebody that is religious said, that you cannot read the Bible literally. I mean, I understand that most people say you have to read the Bible so that you can only have to interpret the Bible. But she said that for me to read the Bible, I need another book. And I asked her what was about that. And she said that, for instance, the Bible says that the Jewish people don't eat meat, don't eat pork. But that is more than just because the Bible says it. There's other reasons behind it, some cultural, historical reasons why they don't eat pork meat. And so, basically, I want to hear if you guys ever heard about that.
Yes, I mean I've heard that specific example, and I've heard things like folks trying to explain, say, the story of the parting of the Red Sea in terms of science, and it's common and it's bizarre. Because you'd think that the whole point of believing in this God is, or that part of believing in the God would be belief that things can happen that violate natural law, right? Or that it could be like wrong to eat pork for reasons that don't have anything to do with health. You'd think that would be possible if there were souls and sins and all these other things going on, but we'll constantly run into believers who are trying to explain those supposedly spiritual things in terms of science. It's weird.
On the issue of whether or not, I mean, because this claim that is starting to become more common, especially from moderate liberal Christians, that, well, you're not supposed to take the Bible literally. Okay, here's a Bible. Please go through it and highlight the verses that I am supposed to take literally in green and the ones that I'm not supposed to take literally in red, and then highlight the ones you're not sure about in yellow. And then when you're done, explain to me how you figured out which of those verses was which.
Yeah,
they cannot do it
like that for my friends.
They cannot do it. It is just, this is my opinion. This is the way I look at the Bible. Okay, fine. In some cases, I might even agree with you. You might even be able to convince me that the creation myth has always been myth and not literal. But it doesn't change the fact that there are people out there who think that it's literal. And it doesn't change the fact that, myth or not, it has absolutely nothing to do with the scientifically demonstrable origins of humanity. It's insane.
It's unfair what they do, right? I mean, they are basically saying, okay, I'm going to pick the parts of the Bible that I like, mainly the parts of the Bible that God is good, I'm quoting that, and going to throw away everything they said that God's bad, so I can live the rest of my life with the religion that I basically pick for myself and change it the way I want it.
Right. Yep. That's the way it is. Well, thanks a lot for calling, Rodrigo. We'll talk to you later. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, and what's considered good and bad in the Bible changes over time, and that change is due to our evolving sense of right and wrong, that we had slavery up until a while back, and that was justified in the Bible, and now you'll have apologists excusing positive references to slavery in the Bible, saying, oh, you can't take it literally, or oh, they didn't mean that, or oh, that word means something different. Ugh.
Yeah, it's annoying, and that issue has come up more and more often over the past few weeks. Quick notes before I go on to the next caller. After the show's over, we're going to go to dinner at Threadgill's on Riverside. And as a reminder, this is the last show for the month of November. We will be back December 6th. With the next episode of the Atheist Experience. This has nothing to do with breakdowns in the studio or anything else. This is entirely out of our control. The studio is being used next week for training to get other shows up to speed. We were one of the first ones to jump in and get back on this after the studio renovation. And on the 29th, I believe it's closed with regard to Thanksgiving celebrations here in the United States. So no show for the next 2 weeks. We'll be back December 6th. We've got Robin in Cartersville.
Hi.
How are you, Robin?
I'm good. I found you guys online like 2 months ago. It's great.
We're online.
On YouTube. Researching atheists.
Well, thanks for hanging on the line so long, Robin. What can we do for you?
And actually, I have to do this real quick, I promise.
Okay.
For people who've been watching clips on YouTube, if this clip happens to make it to YouTube, it's worth pointing out that you can watch the entire show by going to the website, www.atheist-experience.com, as well as archive shows by clicking on the show archive there. Most of them are on Google Video, some of them are on Blip TV. Robin, please continue. Excuse me.
Hi. Well, I have a comment. You tend to let your callers go on a little bit longer than I would have expected.
All right, thanks for calling, Robin. We appreciate it. We'll see you later.
Wow, thank you. You made the comment talking to Rodrigo a second ago that the moderates are kind of a gateway that goes both ways.
Yeah.
To atheism or to more extreme Christianity. And I wanted to comment that my husband and I were probably what you would call more moderate. I think that we tended to be of the evangelical flavor, but we're more moderate Christians until we started taking the Bible more literally and ended up kind of joining what would have been more of a cultic organization because of how literally they took the Bible and things such as that, and that it was very, very, very harmful in our lives. And, having been through all of that, I can honestly say that I genuinely believe that religion is a thing that is harmful to everyone, and we are better off without it.
I am glad to hear that you feel that way and that you're better off.
Yes. Well, but my question is, it was probably about 2 years ago that we actually left church and decided we were never going back. But it was a process from that point forward to figure out that we actually didn't believe in a God at all. And it was probably around July that I would have actually called myself an atheist. So it hasn't been long for us. And the thing is that in the meantime, we've had 3 kids and have been raising them in the church and telling them that this is true and this is what's real. And while I was never the kind of parent to want to lie to my kids about everything, I mean, I've told them half-truths because they're my kids, but, I would tell them, no, there is no Santa Claus, but if you want to pretend, I'll pretend with you as long as I can or as long as you want to. But I don't, my inclination is not to treat the God thing the same way. But because we've done that for so long, sometimes having those discussions, I'll have my kids come to me at the end of a day and say, well, God lives in your heart. Because it's what we've taught them all this time. And, I mean, do you all have any experience, know anyone, who are atheists raising their kids? And how do you talk to them about faith?
You picked the wrong week to call.
Wow,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Neither of us have kids.
Russell and Jeanetta. How old are your kids?
I have a 13-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
All right.
The 13-year-old, we're like, we don't believe in God. And he was like, okay, cool, we're atheists.
Yeah, I was going to say, the 13-year-old's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, he was great. It's the other two, and I don't have a problem rationalizing to him, and he doesn't mind he doesn't mind being rebellious in any way I can hand to him. We live in the South.
I don't have any kids, and I'm often reluctant to give advice to people who have kids. All I can tell you is what I would do. Now, first of all, obviously you're in a weird situation because you've got a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old who, until recently, had been raised with mommy and daddy believing one thing, and now it's different. Right. But I don't. yes, I'm opposed to religious indoctrination, and I understand all the harm it can do, and some kids get involved in cults and everything. I was raised just about as fundamentalist as you could, right down to, you know, camps I went to. My parents still love me. I think it turned out mostly okay. I was not trapped in a religious belief. I kind of think that if you two love your kids, treat them with respect, be honest with them, encourage them to think and question, and teach them more about how to think rather than what to think. But do both. There are cases where you want to teach people what, you know, the information is out there. But get them excited about investigating and questioning without ever even worrying too much about the God issue. The rest of it will probably take care of itself.
Yeah, so when they come to me and say God is in my heart, I don't pull the "No, your heart pumps blood."
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to give my answers to your kids.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of taking an anatomy class and kind of pulled out the book with some of the kinder pictures and said, "Well, this is your heart and this is what it does."
Yeah,
and they just kind of don't accept that.
Yeah, we've not gotten a lot of 6-year-olds calling the show with questions either, so. You know, not a lot of experience here.
I will say, though, that one thing you can look forward to or look for in your area, Texas just recently got a Camp Quest. It starts up this August, and there'll be more about that in the coming months. But organizations like Camp Quest and the other secular organizations, I can't praise them enough, because I grew up, you know, in Cub Scouts, which is becoming more and more religious and has been taken over by Mormons, and that's where we had our meetings and stuff.
Yeah, it's all the Penn and Teller thing.
and I went to Baptist summer camps, and if anybody's seen the movie Jesus Camp, that's not far removed from the.
That's not far removed from the church that we left. I saw Jesus Camp the first time when we were still in that church, and I was like, "That's really cool." And we were Sunday school teachers, believe it or not, and we contacted the lady. I wanted like materials from her because I thought she was doing such a wonderful job teaching those kids about the anointing. And I had to go back and watch it later to figure out why everybody else thought it was so creepy and just about cried. It was you know, my viewpoint had changed so drastically. So yeah.
That's the best thing I've heard in ages.
Well, thank you.
I've been wanting to hear from somebody who was in that situation, because I watched Jesus Camp. We talked about it a lot. It brought back memories, and I can occasionally put on my Christian hat, although I don't want to cover up this sexy head, but I can put it on and think kind of the way I used to. But when I watched Jesus Camp, even for the first time, I couldn't reach any part of me that had any appreciation for anything that was going on in there. And so to hear from somebody who saw it on both sides of a transition is that's really remarkable and encouraging. So. Yeah,
I still actually have her emails. Oh gosh, I had one more question for you and forgot what it was.
You get another one? Oh, you forgot?
Yeah, honey, did you have a question for them? No, we're good.
Okay, thanks, honey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Bye-bye. Bye. Yeah, that's actually something I've been curious about, is to find somebody, and so it's good information. And that, if you haven't seen the documentary, I highly recommend it. It's a good look.
I find it, while I'm encouraged that somebody can actually be on both sides of that, I'm a little discouraged that it wasn't the movie that helped wake her up.
Yeah.
Because you'd think that would be the point of things like that, right?
Except that I swore up and down when that movie came out that I could show it to relatives and friends of mine who are fundamentalist Christians, and they would think that it was wonderful, a wonderful representation of their beliefs, and they would be glad that this documentary was made to get the information out to all the godless people who need to agree with them. Wow. So you have, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I praise this documentary so much, is because I think it was, for the most part, fairly represented the issue, to the point where this is what it is, and the people on this side of it are looking at it as, yeah, that's what we're saying, and the people on the other side are like, holy crap, this is what they're saying.
Yeah,
it's easily one of my favorite movies of the last 5-10 years for sure.
Well, you haven't seen 2012 yet.
I haven't seen 2012 yet, you're right. And I doubt it will supplant Jesus Camp. By the way, in other documentary news, there's Delivers from Evil, which I can highly recommend, which deals with the pedophile priest case. Somebody, thanks to whoever pointed that out to me, it's available as an instant watch on Netflix, if you have a Netflix account and the ability to do that. I watched that recently. My thing here says there's somebody on line 3, but line 3 is empty. So we can check that again. I'm going to guess, Jonathan in Columbia, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing, Jonathan?
Pretty well, yourself?
Not bad.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the lady that called from Ohio, the black lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I myself, I'm black, I'm an atheist as well, and, you know, she is right for sure that, you know, I actually have never met another black atheist. Never. And, I think a part of the reason might be just our history. You know, people who tend to be oppressed seem to be more religious. And you look at most black people, whether it's, you know, America or the Caribbean or Africa, you know, we are a few years out of maybe trying to fight colonialism or, you know, civil rights struggles, and many of us are still, you know, in that mentality. So I think that may have something to do with us being so dependent on faith. It's kind of a part of who we are as a people.
Yeah, I think you may have a good point there. There's a number of possibilities like that have been suggested. I tend to avoid getting into it because the last thing the world needs is a fat, dumb white guy trying to comment on racial issues and then making a bunch of stereotypical comments. I think your point may be one well worth taking, that, you know, and it kind of relates to what I was saying about, you know, we're still transitioning from the injustices we did. If people aren't necessarily comfortable sharing space with one another because of racial tensions, you don't want to add to that mix with the tension of also being different because of your religious beliefs. So it's like if you had this gay atheist black guy, you know, if you're in a couple closets, you're not coming out of either one of them until you're comfortable with who you are in the situation you're in, irrespective of the two things that you're in the closet about.
It's funny you would say that because, you know, I myself am actually gay as well.
Oh, great.
And, you know, my two best friends in the world are Christians, and one of them is very fundamentalist, one is not that fundamentalist. But I realize that you really can't appeal to them using logic. I mean, I simply do not believe because, you know, evidence, you know, for me to believe that there is a God. But with them, I can't go to them with that angle. I have to try to appeal to their emotion. And when I do, they say they won't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I would say things like, you know, Christianity was a willing part of, you know, black people being enslaved and stuff like that. And they refused to even address it from that angle. So even you know, from there, we can have a conversation. But I know for a fact that, you know, going to them with logic certainly doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, it's been said before that you can't reason somebody out of a belief that they didn't reason themselves into. I don't know that I buy that, but as far as truisms go, I think it's probably got some merit. The emotional ties are incredibly deep in the issue of religion. It's the reason why we are often accused of being nasty to an individual when really we are addressing an issue. Not to say that I've never been nasty to an individual. I'm sure that I have on many occasions. But if we're trying, these issues are so much a part of the core of the individual that any attack on the issue is viewed as a personal attack on the person as well. And in that kind of environment, emotions are going to run high, even when you attempt to use reason. Even when reason would work with an individual on any other issue, it can be blocked by that. Yeah.
I agree completely.
Well,
that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Trifecta.
Yeah.
Black, atheist, gay.
Yeah.
Whew. Good luck to you, man.
He's probably doing fine. Sounds like he's actually enjoying life, able to get along with people who disagree with him and call in and talk about it and offer some insight to some people who really don't have enough information. I know there's a number of issues that have come up. Why are there not so many black atheists outspoken? Why are there not as many females? And there are people that are looking into this, but you have to realize that while atheism has been around since the very first claim that there was some God, we're living in an era right now where we've lost ground. If you look at the 19th century, the free thought movement, and you read some of the things that, for example, as I've said a million times before, read some of the things that Colonel Ingersoll was saying at public lectures at the Republican National Convention. This was their speaker one year. If you look at the types of things he was saying, those things vanished. They weren't spoken. When I was younger, the only public atheist I had any knowledge of was Madalyn Murray O'Hair, and she was reviled. It's not like I wasn't aware of any atheist that was lauded or outspoken or openly attacking religion outside of that. And now we're living in an era where, thanks to the internet, thanks to some rather horrendous acts taken on behalf of individuals' faith, more and more people are starting to speak up. The issues are being talked about. The level of public debate is being raised. Bestsellers are being written. And all of a sudden, a lot of people who quietly sat by, feeling ostracized, feeling like they were the only person that didn't believe, smiling and nodding as their religious family members talked about what wonderful works God was doing in their lives and how God was punishing these people over here. Now those people are starting to feel empowered, that they have a voice. If you're one of those people, you need to feel empowered. You do have a voice. Your voice matters. It counts. It's going to count when it comes time to vote. We are a significant portion of the population, non-believers, the nuns, the largest growing segment of religious population in recent years, and yet our voice is not heard when it comes to political issues. And now we're starting to correct that. We have a lobbyist in Sean Faircloth with the Secular Coalition for America. There are a number of activist groups that are changing the way things work, and it's the more people that can speak out, the better we are. Better off we are. Sorry.
Agreed.
We have Glen in San Jose, California.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, Glen.
Just want to say, I love you guys' show. I've watched pretty much every video on YouTube of you guys, so I watch you guys every week on Ustream. So I'm an atheist, and I have a girlfriend who is a theist, but she's not really very religious. Mm-hmm. But she often defends religion when I, see something on TV of like Bill O'Reilly and all these, religious people who are, defending, horrible things that are caused by religion. She often defends religion, and her argument is that it's not really religion which is, the root cause of these problems. And, for example, I'll say something like, the Quran, defends the, spousal abuse, essentially. It says, like, it's totally okay to beat your wife, and actually it's, encouraged that you should beat your wife. And she'll say, well, no, it's not really the religion that's the problem. It's just, like, a cultural thing, and, it's just, a part of their culture. It's not really religion. I'll say, well, okay, how about, this example? And, she'll say, well, no, that's not really religion. That's just, lack of intelligence or lack of education. And she's always defending religion. Now, my question is, how can I demonstrate to her that, religion is a motivation for, causing harm, and that religious beliefs influence people's actions negatively?
Acceptance of evolution as a scientific fact in the United States.
Right. Yeah. I've given her that example. Like,
that is not culture. That is religion sticking its fingers into the business of science education and harming science education in the United States.
On some level, the objection is entirely unfair because When you say the example of harm that religion has done that couldn't be attributed to culture, religion is the product of culture. I mean, so on some level, we're getting back to it. You know, somebody's taking an action. Is it because they're evil, or is it because, you know, for example, take a quote from the Bible: "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Now, that passage on its own is toothless until you find somebody who is of such character that they are willing to accept this as an authority and then act upon it. And therefore it is a reflection of that individual's character. The problem with religion is twofold. One, religions, some of them, tend to contain passages like that are divisive and harmful. So they are prone to being used. I was going to say abused, but that's not correct. If it says don't suffer a witch to live, killing a witch is an application of this. They are prone to being used by the people who want to take those actions. However, there's a second aspect of this, and that is that religions change the culture that they're in, and therefore they increase the likelihood that that people with those characteristics are going to then be cultivated, not only because of evolutionary means, but by the peer pressure and social impact of going along with the crowd.
Yep.
I think another thing to point out is that left to their own devices, cultures change over time, right?
Yep.
So if your girlfriend, is that who we're talking about? If your girlfriend is saying that wife beating is just part of the culture of the Middle East, is that what she's saying? Is she? I mean, that is getting very close to sounding racist.
Yeah. Hey,
right?
Those brown people who
there is a reason. If people have been,
she's Pakistani, so. But
if people have been beating their wives for 15, well, how long old is Islam? Roughly 1,500 years, 1,400? It's somewhere in there.
14.
If people have been beating their wives in the Middle East for that long, you don't call it the culture. A culture can change. There has to be a reason why they keep exhibiting that trait. And when you ask them, why do you think this is okay, they are going to point to the Quran.
Right, that's exactly what I say. But here's what she'll respond with: is saying, before Islam, the people around that area would beat their wives.
Well, of course they would, because religions are made up. Religions are made up by the people who live in a region at the time when the religion is created. Of course it encodes all of the things they thought then.
The problem is that
it locks those things in, so the culture can't change, or is way less likely to.
Yeah, it encourages stasis and stagnation. It discourages progress. It discourages the learning of new ideals. It's not that Christianity is less harmful than Islam. It's that Christians now are the product of a religious culture that was dragged kicking and screaming towards a more ethical approach. There's passages in the Bible that will instruct somebody to do the exact same thing as the passages in the Quran with regard to killing infidels. They just don't do it anymore. And like I said before, I'll give them credit for a half step, but it's a half step. That's the harm of religion, is that it poisons a culture and inhibits progress.
Cool.
It's still people. It's always people that are doing harm, and it is in some cases it is people whose nature is I don't want to say intrinsically, but by and large, what we would consider a label as evil. I mean, there are some people, psychopaths, whatever, but religion is the one thing that can get otherwise good people to do harmful things. The one thing I know of, anyway. And anything that would do that would be something I would probably classify in the same category as religion. These dogmatic, ritualistic means that are used to control and encourage people to take actions in order to propagate those memes and not much else.
All right, cool.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
We've got like 4.5 minutes left. There's a couple callers on I'll get to in a minute. Just as a reminder, after the show's over, we're going to dinner at Threadgill's. I'm announcing it more this week because I didn't announce it all last week. By the way, thanks to everybody who's been tuning in and being patient as we go through these changes in the studio. Sounds like we've got most of the audio issues worked out. It looks like the CG stuff's actually working. So today, despite the fact that when I showed up, I was convinced it was going to be a complete disaster and everything was worse, today may go down as the best show in the new studio. Also,
I'm sure that it will be.
Yeah. I'm on, well, you see, now we're going to go off the air right now. No, and also I want to thank the people who were watching the stream live, who were here early, who helped call in earlier to sort out some of the audio issues. If we don't get to your call today, or if you don't want to call, maybe you're not comfortable talking about your beliefs in person or in a way where you might be recognized, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself and most of the other people involved with the show. We can't promise to answer everything, but we do read them all, assuming they don't get eaten by the spam filter. And there's a good chance that you'll get a response, though. No guarantee. We've got John in the UK.
John, are you there?
Hello?
Cheers. Yes, we hear you, John. Go on.
Yeah, I am a Christian, and I have a YouTube account dedicated to Christianity. It's called Sunderboot. Have you heard of that?
No, sir.
How's it spelled?
SUNDERB00T.
No, I haven't heard of it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube for that anyway. But go ahead.
Yeah. You guys realize that you're going to go to hell, right?
No.
No.
Huh?
we don't think there's any such place. How can we realize we're going to some place we think is imaginary?
So, but you can't honestly think that you're just going to get away with everything in the end.
Get away with everything? I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah, because you have admitted to being immoral on several occasions with, you know, stuff. You support the homosexuals, you support abortion, and, you know, that's harmful for humanity.
No, it's not.
Yeah, first of all, I deny that those things I'm supporting are necessarily moral, but I freely admit that I have been immoral on more than one occasion in my life.
And consequences of actions happen here in the real world. And we consider consequences of our actions in the real world to be, like, significant and something worth thinking about.
Oh, that's bullshit. You know, if you murder someone in the woods and no one's there to hear it or see it,
yes, tragically,
they don't catch you.
Tragically, it is possible to commit some wrong and never be justly punished for it. Tragically, that is true. So what?
Yeah.
How does? You're making a bold assertion that there is some punishment to come. What is your justification for that? Just because it would be unfair that it happened any other way? Who said things were supposed to be fair?
No, God is real. So you know.
How do you know this?
Get you in the end.
How do you know this?
You got like a minute. Prove that he exists.
I can't do it in 1 minute, guys.
All right.
You also can't do it
next week.
You also can't do it in over 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Because people have been trying, and it's never happened.
We are out of time. We don't even actually have the minute because we have to roll the credits. If you can do it, call back December 6th or send us an email. There's a list of all the people who have been working their ass off to make the show better behind the scenes, and they're greatly appreciated. If you want to, you can join us for dinner shortly. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you December 6th. Thanks, Jeff, for coming down.
Bye, buddy.
Just had about a 2-minute dropout on the stream. Otherwise, everything